Interesting enough, I've always tried to throw in a concept called sight reading. I don't know, those who've been in band before kind of know this as one of those tricky things that get graded at festivals. So sight reading is a matter of applying a piece of music you have actually never seen before, and then to try to make sense. So the band director stands in front of the group, talks about it, and they perform it, and they're graded on their extent knowledge of it. We're not exactly sight reading. They played this piece before, like just 15, 20 minutes ago. I will say this, we got started and we made it to the end. So they're going to do this for you today, right off the bat. They're playing a piece that they played a couple times in the last couple weeks. So here we go. This is called Pirate's Cave. Did better the second time. They were looking out for some things then. So that's called sight reading. So when we do Hershey Park, they play their pieces, and sometimes you go to a different room and do the sight reading behind the scenes, and a judge kind of gives you the grade. Something we don't have to do this year at Hershey, thank goodness. So we like to play the three pieces we're playing next Friday. And the first one's called Heroes in Glory. called classical literature. Classical literature is what they want to hear at these festivals. Okay? The kids always say, well, why aren't we playing such and such a piece, Star Wars, for example? That's not what they want to hear. So we have to play kind of from a type of list, you might say, that would be acceptable at most things like this. So the next piece is classical literature for this age. And actually I met the composer one time in Chicago, and she was really popular back a few years ago. Her music is really good and challenging, and I like some of the stuff. In fact, we did one piece last year by her. So this is called West Wind Overture. Our last full group piece is something that sat on my desk, I was telling in school, for many years actually. And I was sort of reticent to hand it out because I know the inherent problems that this particular piece was going to be. So I handed it out and we started with it. And I would just do certain measures over and over again every week until we had mastered those type of skills that we needed. Then we started putting together. So this is a pretty cool piece by a composer we've used a number of times. And this sounds Renaissance-y. It's kind of Elizabethan dance style. And we had to augment it with a lot of cool percussion stuff. I did that. And you'll hear some triangles and tambourines and things to make it Renaissance stuff. So this is Elizabethan dance.